Welcome to TRT World. In this episode, we look at the region at a turning point. We explore the choices shaping the Balkans today. I'm Nadja Muftic, and this is Across the Balkans. The Balkans is entering a decisive new phase. Critical elections, political deadlock, and a renewed drive toward European Union membership are reshaping the region. Montenegro is leading the race toward accession, while its neighbors are also making important progress. As Brussels pushes for faster reforms, the question now is whether this momentum can be sustained. Selene Eshenchai reports.
For over 2 decades, the Balkans has been locked in a complex, multi-speed race towards European Union membership, in which candidate status demands a difficult balance between domestic reforms and geopolitical loyalty. Belgrade epitomizes the regional tension. Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić has made a political career out of keeping everyone at the table without fully committing to any specific alliance. At the latest EU Western Balkans summit in Tivat, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz delivered a blunt message to Belgrade.
Muss sich Serbien auch entscheiden, wo es steht. Also eine Schaukelpolitik zwischen Russland, China und Europa, die kann es nicht geben.
Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Belgrade has refused to impose sanctions on Moscow, despite its EU candidate status. Pro-Russian sentiment runs deep in Serbia, shaped by historic, religious and energy ties.
Srbija se nalazi na svom evropskom putu, ali da, Srbija želi da čuva svoja tradicionalna prijateljstva i prema Narodnoj Republici Kini, i prema Ruskoj Federaciji i to je naša pozicija već za mnoge bila neizdrživa ili nemoguća već 1 i 4 meseca.
Merz acknowledged Belgrade's EU path remains open, but with firm conditions for foreign policy alignment. Just a day before the summit, France made a clear show of where it places its bets. President Macron traveled to Cetinje to sign major bilateral agreements with Montenegro, currently the bloc's most advanced accession candidate.
La vocation des Balkans occidentaux est de rejoindre l'Union européenne, ce qui suppose un engagement exigeant dans la conduite des réformes, ce processus étant basé sur le mérite. Et je veux ici dire combien le Monténégro s'est engagé avec sérieux, détermination et des résultats exceptionnels durant ces dernières années.
Among the deals, a $300 million contract for French giant Bouygues to build a new university hospital. Hot on Montenegro's heels, Albania is also pushing forward as a frontrunner, steadily advancing through its own negotiation clusters by implementing deep judicial and structural reforms. Progress is trickier in other areas. Bosnia and Herzegovina and North Macedonia remain firmly on the EU radar, but internal political deadlocks and unresolved regional disputes continue to slow their technical advancements, delaying their European ambitions. Across the border in Kosovo, a different milestone emerged: a third parliamentary election in just 18 months. Kosovo, Europe's youngest nation, has been struggling without a fully functioning government for much of the past year. Its EU ambitions are clear, but domestic hurdles remain steep. This Balkan sprint is happening against the backdrop of a fundamentally shifting wider European landscape. The urgency to secure the Balkans has been re-energized by the EU's historic move this month to formally open accession clusters with Ukraine and Moldova. European Council President Antonio Costa noted that this wider eastern breakthrough is actively driving the momentum back down into the Adriatic.
The opening of accession negotiations for Ukraine and Moldova this week is a historic step and a clear signal of the European Union's commitment to enlargement. And it builds on the positive momentum created by progress with Montenegro and Albania.
From the shores of the Adriatic to the borders of Eastern Europe, the map of potential EU members is moving faster than it has in decades. Yet for the Balkans, opening the door is only halfway the battle. The rest depends on the hard reality of domestic reform. Selene Eshenchai, Across the Balkans.
To help us look at the Balkans' path toward European Union membership, I'm joined by Faris Kocan, an assistant professor at the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Ljubljana, Slovenia. Thank you for joining us. Is the European Union's enlargement policy toward the Balkans still a genuine strategic policy, or has it become a political promise without a clear timeline?
I agree with you here. So the idea is that, of course, the European Union understands that the enlargement as such is strategically necessary, but unfortunately, the politically undefined momentum is where the Western Balkans or the region as such doesn't catch up. Of course, the rhetoric of the European Union has changed amidst the aggression of Russian Federation on Ukraine. And of course, here you can see the geopolitical necessity of the enlargement strategy as such vis-a-vis the Western Balkans. But of course, I would say that the problem is a clear political calendar. There are generations from 2003 when we had the Thessaloniki summits that were promised the European Union enlargement, and right up now, so more than one generation as such has lived in the promise that there is something that is going to happen. And of course, this has led to an enlargement fatigue. So even though the geopolitical context has emerged or changed in this such, the political calendar is a bit problematic. And this in turn also, doesn't have this transformative potential that it needed to have. And also the generations and the people that live in the Western Balkans are somehow also tired of the whole process. And this tiredness from the process is also something that is problematic vis-a-vis the political domestic elites, because they just don't see a momentum where they can say, okay, we'll do this and this reform and we'll get this and this from the European Union. So this is something that is a bit problematic without a clear timeline, as you said. So we are in a process of having this necessity, but on the other hand, you can see a clear enlargement.
According to your opinion, which Balkan country is closest to joining the European Union?
I would say that the closest one right now, because the enlargement policy, which is one of the most transformative policies of the European Union, as such, needs to stay alive, is Montenegro. So you have a clear path line for the Montenegro. You had change in the domestic political elites. They were ready and able and willing to do the necessary reforms, and they are the front runners right now from the Western Balkans. So if things will go as promised or as planned vis-a-vis the Brussels, Montenegro is going to be the next EU member state in 2028. And then down the line, there is also Albania, which has currently domestic political problems, also with the corruption and the rule of law, which is somehow preventing them to engage even more meaningfully towards the European Union enlargement process. There is always somewhere here Serbia as a factor of stability of the Western Balkans, and of course, which is perceived as such by the European Union. And then you have North Macedonia, which is under the different types of blockades, so which is preventing it, to enter the European Union. And probably last but not least, there are Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo. Kosovo has structural problems with the non-recognition pattern in the European Union, so it is in a different kind of a situation. And of course, Bosnia and Herzegovina with its green light, but not, actually starting the negotiation process, which is, a big problem also for the Bosnia and Herzegovina and for the European Union as such. So I would say the least prepared or the least prepared country when it comes to the expectation is Kosovo, and the most prepared is Montenegro.
What do you think that is the reason for that, for Bosnia and Herzegovina to be in this type of situation?
I would say that there is mostly a political one. So we know the security and the geopolitical one, which actually enables Bosnia and Herzegovina to receive the green light. And of course, the European Union was willing to do so, even though we had 14 priorities from the European Commission from 2019, and only one was addressed until 2022. So this is the geopolitical momentum. But of course, the political situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is as it is. We know that we need to do the reforms. Some of the reforms also touch upon the constitutional framework of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And of course, the domestic political elites are not willing to to address it, to do so. They have, to a certain extent, usurped or instrumentalized the European integration process for their domestic political gains. And of course, you can see that also now during the political blockade, the political issue and challenges that was tied to Milorad Dodik and Republika Srpska. And of course, because we have the new elections in October this year, you can see that the political elites are not willing to enter the European integration process and the reform process actually sincere, because they are just seeing this as a context to further gain some points on the upcoming elections.
How do the influence and presence of major regional and global powers, including Russia, China, and Turkey, affect the European Union's policy towards the Balkans? Does their influence speed up or slow down the enlargement process?
So when it comes to the speed up of the process, here you have, as you said, Turkey, which is a NATO member state and as such is perceived as an important strategic partner for the European Union, amidst also the strategic autonomy, which is, of course, something that we should oversee and see, because Turkey is becoming an indispensable member and part of the European Union's efforts towards strategic autonomy and this European pillar of NATO. So this is something that might speed up the process a bit, also if the alignment is going to be here. When it comes to China and Russia, the situation is different. China is understood as a strategic rival, not just from the United States point of view, but also from the European Union's point of view. And of course, China is present here primarily via the infrastructural and economic projects. We also have it in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not just in Serbia, which is somehow a hub for Chinese investments in the region. And Russia is perceived, of course, as a negative actor, which has ties primarily through the Orthodox Church, through the Serbia and Republika Srpska, and to a certain extent also in Montenegro. And of course, this, I would say, gaps, the security gaps were needed to be, tied, were needed to be closed by the European Union. And this is somewhere where you can see the geopolitical momentum, where, Bosnia and Herzegovina received the green light, Montenegro accelerated the process. So you can see here that actually Russia, through its negative effects, through its negative attitudes and the perceptions by the European Union, to a certain extent also spurred and furthered the European integration process in a more speedy and momentful way.
How will the messages and conclusions from this July's NATO summit in Ankara affect the EU's policy toward the Balkans? Are security concerns now becoming more important than the pace of reforms in the accession process?
Yeah, it seems like that. So if you take, for example, also the United States transactional policy, so Donald Trump's transactional logic and approach towards the region, also you can see it from the South Interconnection Project. You can see it also from the Office of the High Representative. You can see from bilateral ties also in Albania and Serbia. There is some idea or sense that the US approach is going to be much more realistic, also very much inward oriented towards its own interests, whether the European Union on the other side has this liberalist approach, nation building and peace building approach, which also tends to tie and further the enlargement of the Western Balkans. So you can see here that there are tensions. And of course, the United States, as the most important actor within the NATO, reflects upon that. The European Union and Europe as such needs to be much more security and defense oriented. This is something that Donald Trump is signaling all the way. And of course, this also inherently ties also to the Western Balkans and through the future enlargement scenario, where you can see that the enlargement as such is becoming a security and geopolitical, dimension. And this is also going to be reflected on the Ankara summit, where member states, or European member states, should do more, and probably the signals are going to be focused on that way. So I can see here now that the security and the defense momentum is gaining traction also in the Western Balkans, and we'll see whether this is going to be good, for example, because Bosnia and Herzegovina is a candidate member, and probably the idea is that Bosnia and Herzegovina enters the NATO framework, and we'll also see how the European Union reacts within the strategic autonomy, and where does it see the Western Balkans also in the infrastructure and industry development within that sector.
Thank you so much for being our guest in Across the Balkans.
Thank you so much.
Bosnian football fans used the World Cup stage to send a message of support for Palestinians. This comes amid ongoing military onslaughts in Gaza and continued displacement and violence in the West Bank. It reflects a wider trend seen in the Balkans and beyond, where public sentiment on Palestine isn't always in step with government's foreign policy. Nadja Muftic reports.
Bosnia have been kicked out of the competition following their 2-0 defeat against the United States. But the team will be remembered not only for the song I Am From Bosnia, which became a viral football anthem, but for flying the flag for Palestine, which failed to qualify. This on the streets of Seattle, to venues in Toronto. The violence against Palestinians in Gaza hasn't stopped. Despite a ceasefire agreement in October, more than 1,000 people have been killed since. As international condemnation of Israeli actions continues to grow, the Balkan region has taken varied stances on Gaza.
العالم كله ملهي في كأس العالم والاحتلال يتمعن في غضرفه وفي احتلال بشكل مش طبيعي والعالم متفرج.
As international condemnation of Israeli actions continues to grow, the Balkan region has taken varied stances on Gaza. In some cases, support for Palestine is clearer than in others. The consensus among the Bosniak majority is strong, given the parallel histories of genocide. Its legacy continues to echo to this very day. For instance, the International Committee of the Red Cross said there is a risk that thousands of Palestinians buried beneath rubble in Gaza may never be identified. Bosnia's government has, in various sessions at the UN, advocated for the slaughter to end by calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire.
Gaza is a heavy defeat of collective humanity in the 21st century. All human lives are equally valuable. Civilized people must fight for the human rights.
The Gaza Tribunal in Sarajevo last May concluded with the adoption of the Sarajevo Declaration, which formally accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and strongly condemned international powers for their complicity and failure to enforce global law. It, along with Kosovo, has committed troops to support an international stabilization mission under a UN Security Council resolution adopted in November. While Albania officially recognized the State of Palestine in 1988 under its former communist regime, its current government under President Edi Rama has been pivoting towards Israel and, not unlike Serbia, has been signing deals. Last year, a major deal was signed by Elbit Systems, an Israel-based international military technology company and defense contractor, to supply Albania with artillery and drones. This can be understood in light of the country's desire to attract foreign investment and tighten relations with Western partners like the US. However, the official policy faces friction, as parts of Albania's Muslim-majority public harbour deep humanitarian sympathy for Palestine. Greece, one of Israel's key EU allies, has increasingly found itself balancing strategic cooperation with Israel against growing domestic and international pressure over Gaza. Greece has also not clarified how it would respond to an International Criminal Court arrest warrant for Netanyahu should he enter the country. Greek society has been among the most mobilized in Europe, with repeated demonstrations in cities like Athens. While governments continue to debate policy and diplomacy, many supporters across the Balkans are using one of the world's biggest sporting events to keep the Palestinian cause in the public eye. Matches may end after 90 minutes, but the calls for justice continue. Nadja Muftic, across the Balkans.
The European Union banned battery cages for laying hens more than a decade ago. But in Serbia, where EU membership remains a key goal, most eggs are still believed to come from cage birds. Now, activists are taking their campaign directly to supermarket shelves, hoping consumers will help drive change. Katarina Petrovic went to see what's hiding behind the carton.
You are what you eat, the saying goes, but we rarely ask the next question, what the thing we eat had to go through to reach us. For most of history we couldn't know, today we can, which makes not knowing less like ignorance and more like a choice.
Kavezni uzgoj je najokrutniji uzgoj na planeti. Ovo se dešava svakodnevno, ne dešava se samo na jednoj farmi ili na dve farme, nije izuzetak, već je pravilo.
Ono što je mene najviše dotaklo je taj zvuk. Sve vreme se čuje škripanje ventilacije, sve vreme se čuju uznemirene koke koje sede čuče na tim žicama.
An egg looks like one of the simplest foods on earth, but how it got to you is a system most of us never see. Cages, labels, supermarket contracts, and the politics of cheap food. In Serbia, activists say the number stamped on an egg can tell you whether a hen lived like an animal or like a machine. That number is hiding in plain sight on the shell of almost every egg you buy in Serbia and right across Europe. The first digit represents the production method, 0 for organic, 1 for free range, 2 for barn, 3 for cage. It's all there. Almost no one has been taught to read it. Campaigners describe what that 3 looks like up close. 4 to 6 hens to a wire cage stacked in tiers, each bird with less floor space than a sheet of A4 paper. We took the question to a vet who has worked with farm animals here for decades.
Pod stresom niko ne može da preživljava tako i koke nosilje, a one spadaju u stresne životinje. Njih i najmanji problem može da smanji, recimo, nosivost, može da izazove paniku kod njih, može da dođe do uginuća.
And the stress doesn't stay with the hen. Studies show a frightened bird lays fewer eggs with thinner shells and passes her own stress hormone into the yolk.
Ovo treba svakako posmatrati kao kvalitet hrane koju unosimo mi u sebe i da znamo na šta mi to jedemo.
An hour away, Snežana keeps around 50 hens loose in her yard alongside her goats, pigs and cows.
Ja sam neko ko ne bi nikad voleo da bude u kavezu, tako da nisam želela ni svojim životinjama. Drugo, što ne želim sebi, ne želim ni drugim. A ovo ne mogu ni da se pomeri. Znači može da jede i može da nosi jaje. I to je sve što može.
Her own hens are a mixed flock, some local, some laying breeds. They lay far fewer eggs than the industrial birds and they live for years. But the eggs they do lay, Snežana insists, are better.
Vrlo je lako dobiti boju žuvanceta. Postoje ti aditivi koji se daju kokoškama i žuvance bude narančasto. Mislim, ne idemo na to, idemo na kvalitet, a ne na kvantitet.
Her eggs cost more and her Belgrade customers pay it. But a yard like this isn't where most of Serbia's eggs come from. Serbia produces well over 1 billion eggs a year, a market worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and most are bought in supermarkets.
Supermarketi kao takvi najviše mogu da utiču na ponudu i potražnju. Mnoge zemlje u supermarketima uopšte nemaju jaja iz kaveznog uzgoja.
The campaign is a Serbian arm of a global cage-free network, more than 80 welfare groups, and activists say the same pressure has moved big retailers in countries like Germany. Its petition in Serbia has surpassed 20,000 names. The price gap, campaigners say, is often smaller than shoppers assume.
Jer kompanije jednom svojom odlukom, odnosno javnom obavezom, mogu da izbace jaje iz kaveznog uzgoja iz svoje ponude i time spasu milione pa i milijarde kokošaka.
Oni svi deluju kao da žele da sarađuju. Oni znaju da moraju da kažu da im je do ovoga stalo i da moraju da kažu da im je ovo bitno, ali opet znaju i da to podrazumeva promene neke koje će njih ugroziti na neki način finansijski ili već, mislim da bi što više da odugovlače, da ne moraju da naprave nikakvu promenu, iako znaju da je ta promena neminovna. Nijedan supermarket ne želi negativni publicitet.
One farm the activists' name simply told us it wasn't interested. The chain, whose shelves they point to, declined an on-camera interview, but answered in writing. Animal welfare has been its policy since 2018. Its cage-free range grows each year, and its own review, it says, found the footage was not authentic and not filmed on any farm it supplies system. The campaign disputes that.
Sve kavezne farme su loše. Njene noge nisu napravljene da stoje na žici. Njene noge su napravljene da stoje na travi.
Kako sam rasla, shvatila sam da te životinje koje mi vidimo, one jesu u problemu, ali u mnogo većem problemu su one životinje koje mi ne vidimo. To su životinje koje se nalaze iza zidova farmi, iza zidova klanica i prosto tad se rodila želja u meni da stvarno pomognem tim životinjama.
In the EU, the old battery cages are already banned. In Serbia, cages are still legal, the deadlines keep slipping, and the cheapest egg still wins.
One nikad ne vide ni sunce, ni da dotaknu ni travu, niti bilo šta i krila ne mogu da rašire. Prvi put u životu vide nebo ili bilo šta prirodno u svom okruženju tek kad ih odvedu na klanje.
The number that decides a hen's whole life is already on the egg in your hand. The only thing left is whether anyone looks, because how she lived doesn't vanish when the shell is stamped. It travels with the egg into us, and whether the first condition for our own health was, all along, our humanity. Katarina Petrović, Across the Balkans, Serbia.
That's all from us on Across the Balkans. The region continues to change, and we will keep bringing you the stories and voices shaping its future. You can follow our stories on social media and TRT World's YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. I'm Nadja Muftic, and we hope to see you next time.